At the end of the 20th century, when modern warfare was dominated by satellites, digital maps, and invisible aircraft, the F-117 Nighthawk emerged as the ultimate symbol of American technological supremacy, a jet designed not for beauty or speed but for deception. Its sharp angles and radar-absorbing skin crafted to scatter enemy signals into meaningless noise, allowing it to pass through the most heavily defended skies on Earth like a ghost that could strike and vanish without consequence. And for years this illusion of invisibility created a dangerous confidence among planners and pilots who believed that the sky itself had been conquered by mathematics and metal. Yet beneath this illusion, far from the glowing screens of NATO command centers, on the dark and battered soil of Yugoslavia, a small group of air defense soldiers armed with outdated Soviet-era equipment faced nightly bombardment without the luxury of advanced technology, knowing they could never defeat their enemy through force alone. And among them stood a quiet and methodical commander named Zult Andani, a man who understood that every system built by humans carries assumptions, habits, and blind spots, and that stealth was not magic but a compromise optimized against certain frequencies and predictable behaviors, leading him to reject traditional doctrine by keeping his radar silent for hours at a time, denying NATO the electronic signals they relied upon to locate and destroy air defenses, studying flight paths that repeated night after night, altitudes that never changed, and the subtle arrogance that comes from believing oneself untouchable, patiently waiting for the one moment when the invisible warrior would be forced by its own mission to reveal a fragment of its presence, because bombs cannot be dropped without opening doors, and doors, no matter how carefully designed, must briefly betray the shape they conceal, turning the vast and terrifying sky into a chessboard where the smallest piece, moved at exactly the right moment, could threaten the king itself. That moment arrived on a cold March night in 1999 when an F-117 followed its familiar route with routine precision, its pilot confident in the belief that no eye could truly see him, unaware that below, the silent radar crew had already memorized the rhythm of NATO operations like musicians waiting for a familiar note, and as the aircraft approached its target and opened its bomb bay doors to release its weapons, the laws of physics briefly overcame the illusion of invisibility, altering the aircraft's radar signature just enough for Donnie's low-frequency radar to awaken for mere seconds and capture an unnatural echo in the darkness, not a clean image but a disturbance that did not belong to the night sky, prompting calm but decisive orders as the missile battery aligned itself with the target no one believed could be hit, launching two missiles into the blackness where technology met probability. The first missing as history often does when testing a bold idea, the second detonating close enough to tear through the myth of invulnerability and send the once untouchable Nighthawk spiraling out of control, forcing its pilot to eject into hostile territory while the wreckage burned across Yugoslav fields, instantly transforming a classified symbol of dominance into shattered debris, sending shockwaves through NATO headquarters where disbelief turned into urgent reassessment, as analysts replayed data and confronted an uncomfortable truth that stealth had never meant invisibility, only reduced detectability under specific conditions, and that disciplined opponents using intelligence, restraint, and adaptability could exploit even the smallest window of exposure, rewriting modern air warfare not through revolutionary weapons but through revolutionary thinking that proved superiority is never absolute, only temporary. In the years that followed, as the wreckage of the fallen aircraft was studied, hidden, and eventually displayed as a relic rather than a secret, the legacy of that single night grew far beyond the battlefield, forcing militaries worldwide to redesign tactics, abandon predictable routes, integrate stealth with humility, and accept that no machine can replace human judgment, while smaller nations quietly learned that patience and understanding could narrow even the widest technological gap. And the most powerful conclusion of all came not from strategy papers or defense budgets but from a quiet meeting years later when the pilot who once flew the invisible warrior and the commander who brought it down stood face to face without anger or pride, recognizing each other not as enemies but as professionals shaped by duty, chance, and choice, sealing the story not as a tale of defeat or victory but as a timeless lesson written across history itself that arrogance invites blindness, routine invites vulnerability, and that in every age of war, no matter how advanced the machines become, it is ultimately the human mind observant, disciplined, and willing to think differently that decides which warriors rise, which fall, and how legends are born and broken. Years after the F-117 Nighthawk's dramatic fall over Yugoslavia, the story of a small radar defeating the most advanced stealth technology became more than a single night of combat. It evolved into a lesson studied by militaries around the world, shaping new doctrines of air defense where human intelligence, observation, and patience were valued as much as technological superiority, as defense strategists realized that no aircraft, no matter how advanced, could be considered untouchable, leading to the design of low-frequency radar networks, unpredictable flight paths, electronic countermeasures, and simulation programs that replicated the Yugoslav experience to train pilots and commanders in humility and adaptability, while smaller nations began to understand that clever use of limited resources could offset overwhelming power, inspiring innovative tactics that emphasized timing, coordination, and calculated risk. And the incident entered the textbooks not as a failure of American engineering but as a testament to the enduring principle that understanding one's enemy, exploiting predictability, and thinking creatively could overcome the most daunting technological odds. And in civilian circles, documentaries, books, and simulations kept the legend alive, highlighting the quiet heroism of commanders like Zolt Handani, who had achieved a victory without glory-seeking, relying solely on discipline, patience, and a deep comprehension of both human and machine behavior. And decades later, the F-117 shootdown continued to influence military exercises, air defense policy, and international strategies, as analysts debated, pilots rehearsed, and nations planned for future conflicts, proving that the true legacy of that night was not destruction alone but the demonstration that the mind can outmaneuver machines, that strategy can trump stealth, and that even in an age dominated by technology, the human element of observation, intuition, patience, and courage remains the ultimate determinant of success, ensuring that this single event would echo in history as a timeless narrative of innovation, respect, adaptation, and the eternal dance between power and intellect, reminding every future warrior, engineer, and strategist that while weapons may evolve, the principles of thought, discipline, and anticipation will forever govern the outcome of conflicts, and that a small radar, carefully operated with wisdom and precision, can leave a mark on history far greater than its size suggests, inspiring generations to never underestimate the possible impact of insight, foresight, and meticulous planning, turning a single night into a legend, a cautionary tale, and a blueprint for understanding the delicate balance between technology, human skill, and the unpredictable nature of war.